Hello DevOps people, welcome to Monospace Mentor. I'm Jochen, the Monospace Mentor, and this is my office hour, an hour of you asking questions and me trying to answer them. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask about software engineering, maybe Ruby coding in specific, because that's my expertise, or Linux system administration, which is even more my expertise, DevOps topics, SRE, all that stuff. If you have anything that you wanted to ask but never dared, this is the place. And please pop on qa.monospacementor.com. I just realized there is no banner on the screen, which is strange. I need to fix that. qa.monospacementor.com is where you can post your questions anonymously without having to log in or create an account or anything. It's just a good way for me to get your questions listed, get them displayed prominently on my and your screen, and check them off once they're answered. So go there, ask your questions, we'll collect them there, and I'll go through them one by one. If you'd like, you can upvote other questions, so to give them priority, and let's see what you're going to come up with. In the meantime, I need to fix my banner. Give me just a second. There is something not right. And let's see. Okay. QA, that's going via Atom. Ah, yeah, that might be because of the rebranding of my channel. Let's see. Adrian Learn says, happy to see the PyDP 11 on display. Yep, I moved it over so it's more prominently visible. I love that thing too. Need to use it more though. Hey, Nancodes, welcome. Good to have you. Welcome to the office hour. If you have any questions, go to qa.monospacementor.com and post them there, and as soon as I've fixed my little technical issue here, I'll start answering questions there. So let me see. Yes, I think I know what happened. Let's see, what happens if I press this button now? Haha! So I guess we can move this over again. And I should also open the Q&A panel here on my screen. And I just realized there are already questions coming in. Give me just a second. Oops, that didn't work well. could be better prepared, I'll admit that. All right. Now, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, that works well. So let's start with the more general question. This is a general question. In the developer community, there are a lot of egos and some of them run up high. How to navigate this terrain without becoming confrontational or offensive? Culture question. I know exactly what you mean. There are a lot of people who are very sure of themselves. I tend to not engage, to be honest, and that's less cowardice than it is pragmatism. I think oftentimes, I think it's highly likely that you won't move these people anyway, because they think so much of themselves that your humble opinion doesn't really matter much. And so at least that's what I think and what has been my experience so far. And so I try to simply not engage. If there is something that I think needs addressing, I'll probably do that independently. That way it's also less confrontational, but say someone says something about Ruby or Rails, something like that, is related to what I do, or says something that I think is wrong about Linux, I'll probably simply go and write a social media post or even a blog post about the topic. And that way I can basically add a counterpoint to the discussion without getting into a discussion, if you know what I mean. And that way, at least I have done what I can do. They might still drown out my voice because they might have a much larger following as it is usually. And people might not even notice what I wrote. But I don't think I can do anything about that. And so that would be my general strategy. Either ignore them completely, or if it's something I can't ignore, address it independently. So it doesn't draw all the fanboys and it doesn't come over as confrontational. Instead, I just add my point of view to the whole ocean of point of views, and I can be content with that. Maybe that's also an important keyword here. I'm quite stoic, and so other people's opinions don't phase or affect me much, and so I can live with people being wrong on the internet. Hope that is at least a little bit helpful. If you want to go deeper on that, feel free to add follow-up questions as well. And that's, of course, also a general rule. If you want to go deeper on something, don't think that when I finish my answer, this is done and does not get discussed any further. We can go as deep as you want during this hour. Another culture question, but let me get a little bit of coffee first. That seems to be a little bit more of a tricky question. When you have a toxic person at your work who is good at what they do, but their behavior is borderline psychopathic, how do you deal with that when this person is affecting your mental health? I'll get back to being stoic. I have a mantra about these things that is, first, you can love it, you can change it, or you can leave it. You have these three options about a situation. If you love the situation, great. Happy days, congrats. You can try and change it if you don't love it. In this case, that would mean probably talking to their superior. Because if you say the behavior is borderline psychopathic, that sounds to me like it's no use of addressing it with themselves, which should be the first port of call in general. If someone does something that annoys you or that you don't find is okay, first address it with the person themselves. But if you think, no, there's such a divide between the two of us that it won't work, or that I can't really, I don't even know how to address it with them, I would say go to their manager and not to complain. I think it's important how you address this thing. If you go to a manager and tell them that person does this and that and it's annoying me, or this is not okay, it might not be as helpful if you point out the consequences of that behavior, because it's the consequences that the manager should be concerned about the most. Because if you can tell them how this affects teamwork, how this affects employee retention, how this affects the political landscape within your company, maybe your team gets into a bad standing with other teams, or people don't want to work with your team anymore, things like that. If you can point out tangible consequences of their behavior, the manager might be much more inclined to do something about it. On the other hand, if that behavior is as blatant that as it sounds, and the manager might already be aware of that behavior and still seems to tolerate it, that, I guess, gets us nearer to the third option, namely, leave it. You have agency beyond what you can do with that particular person or their manager. You can also simply choose to leave the situation altogether, which might mean that you might request a transfer to a different team. It might mean that you quit your job and look for something else that is less toxic of an environment. I guess that's the whole spectrum with a situation. There's the possibility that you love a situation, and that's of course the best outcome. You can otherwise try and change the situation for the better. And if that's not an option, or you tried it and it didn't work, then there's always the option of leaving that situation. Staying in that situation that you don't love is not a great idea, because that will always affect you. It will affect your productivity. It will affect your mental health. It might even damage your own reputation, because things might be blamed on you, or your productivity goes down so far that you deliver bad results yourself. And in the end, one of the worst outcomes would be you get fired because the situation didn't allow you to do good work, and now you have to look for a job anyway, but because of being fired for not delivering. And I think that's definitely worse than ending a situation that wasn't tolerable to you. It's a tough situation, no doubt about that. But remember that you have agency, in different ways, and that you have different levels how far you can escalate that situation. Here's a more technical question. Is the AWS Solutions Architect Associate worth it? That's a question that I often get during these office hours and in my coaching calls. The answer, as always, is it depends. Certifications can be helpful, but how much depends on your own situation. What I usually use to visualize this is kind of a bell curve. So if you imagine a bell curve where you have oops, someone did completely change my settings here. I need to have a talk with specific family members. So if we have a bell curve like that, then this is the usefulness of a certification, and this is the seniority that you have in your job. What I mean is that there's an area at the left here where you are still pretty junior, and having certifications where you simply sat an exam and came up with the right answers doesn't help you too much in terms of your employability or in terms of career advancement. At this point, I would recommend looking more into practical skills, into delivering tangible results, into delivering a project, into showing that you not only have skills but also are growing them, and that way I think you can prove your worth much more than by simply passing an exam. Something similar applies to the area at the tail end here, where you are already pretty senior and maybe even on track to something like a senior engineer or a principal engineer, staff engineer. And at that point, certifications don't really help you anymore. Because you've already made your career progression, you've already succeeded in what you do, and there's not much anymore that you can prove by passing an exam. There are completely different challenges at this point that you need to master, and sitting an exam and ticking the right answers definitely is not part of those challenges. Which leaves the part in the middle, and that is where certifications can really help, because you can augment the skills that you've already shown and proven, including your skill to continually grow and learn. You can augment these skills by having a formal certification, by being able to prove, for example, when you tell an interviewer that you are good at cloud native stuff, for example, that you have a certification that proves that. So you can use that certification as a emphasis on the other things that you're basically throwing in the ring to get a job or to get a promotion. Does that make sense? I hope so. Then there's another question. Which country has the best job opportunity, salary-wise or career development in the EU for developers? I have no idea. I am not following these numbers and statistics, so I won't be able to answer that question. You'd have to do your own research there and see what's in there for you. I don't think I have anything that I can add to that, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But it might also be that these numbers keep fluctuating a lot. And so I'm not sure if, even if I had seen numbers and things in the past, if they would still apply at this time. So yeah. You'll probably have to do your own research there. If you've just joined the stream, this is the Monospace Mentor Office Hour. You ask questions and I try to answer them. I have decades of experience in IT, have been running my own businesses, have been running my current business for 14 years now. With monospacementor.com, I have now a second business running that is all about teaching and coaching about IT, software engineering, site reliability engineering, and things like that. So if you'd like to pick my brain and get a question answered, post it to qa.monospacementor.com. I'd pick them from there and try and answer them. I'll do my best. That is what I can promise. Anything else, I guess, is for you to judge. Here's another question. Can you become a good software engineer without a CS degree? Yes, definitely. And there are two parts to this answer. I do have a CS degree. I got mine in the 90s. So the first part of my answer would be computer science as a college degree is not geared towards becoming a software engineer intentionally. I think it's more about the science part than about the computer part, to be honest. So a good computer science degree teaches you how to what science is behind all these computing things. So you learn about the mathematical side of things, maybe even practical stuff like things like the O notation for algorithmic complexity and things like that. But also the background of, say, system architecture and things like that, which all doesn't make you a software engineer, but it definitely helps becoming one. Because the more background knowledge you have, the better it is for you to understand, the easier it is for you to understand what's going on in software development. So it definitely helps with becoming a software engineer, but you will still have to do the same things as every software engineer, which is learning about software development, picking one or more programming languages and becoming more or less of a master in those. And it's something that you probably will have to do on top of your CS degree. And then there's the second part of my answer, which is also computer science. Curricula aren't really geared towards making you a good software engineer because the curricula are bad. It's really sad that many colleges still don't keep up with the time.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Good thing I have an Ethernet connection, I guess. Welcome to the stack. there are people who are actually leaving the college education space where they were teachers because on one hand the curriculum is bad, on the other hand students seem also to be maybe mistaken about what they're doing and what they're supposed to do, and are often surprised by getting bad grades even though they consider themselves great at computers or something like that. So oftentimes there is a great mismatch between the expectations that students have getting into a CS program and the curriculum that is then taught to them. So if your question comes because you consider getting a CS degree or would consider a CS degree if it helps you becoming a good software engineer, my answer would be there's a certain likelihood that it's not worth it. Putting in the time to get practical experience, to get early mastery of software engineering concepts and things like that might actually be a good alternative if you're not going to go into academia, that is, of course. I mean, if you want to eventually teach computer science, of course, you need to study it first. But my short answer to your question would be yes, definitely. Before we get to a very long question, which I hope is a question, let's address this easier one first. What are good resources to learn about Git more deeply? I mean, there are lots of great resources on the web. There shouldn't be a shortage of anything, starting with the original website git-scm.org, I think it is, where there are tutorials and things like that. And there are also great YouTube videos, if that's your thing. And of course, nothing beats practice. Most of the things, especially the more advanced things that I've learned about Git, I learned by applying Git in my daily practice, by finally trying rebasing a branch and probably completely destroying everything. But thankfully, Git still saves things, and so most of the stuff that you do wrong with Git is recoverable, and so don't be too afraid of getting into things. I mean, there's also my new wiki, but I have to see if I have something useful on there for Git. Otherwise, I need to have give myself a little bit of homework. So let me check out what my wiki has to say about Git. You can find that at wiki.monospacementor.com, and let's simply enter Git here. Git version control. I made a few notes about stuff that I wanted to remember. And here are a few bookmarks that I actually set, and there's a one that I just added recently. So there's a website called Oh Shit Git, and that is definitely also helpful with a few practical things that help you troubleshooting stuff if you got yourself into a situation. The Laman posted, if I may, gitscm.com. Okay, it's .com, not .org. And there is actually a whole book about Git, definitely, yeah. I should add that to my bookmarks as well. Actually, I'll do that right away. Give me just a second. Copy link address. And where's my notes? It's very easy for me to update this wiki because it's based on my Obsidian notes. So I just go into Obsidian, Git version control, go edit. And let's add the... No, that's not the right one. Just a second. Why didn't it copy? Oh, I copied the wrong URL. Oh shit, Git was above that. Oh, Chugging Coffee added oh shit, Git as well. Hey, Chugging Coffee, how you doing? Okay, here we have the Git book. Let me move that a little bit to the top here. And, okay, I can see why that didn't work. All right, and now let's publish this. Boom, and that's my wiki updated. Here in the bookmarks at the top, you have now the Git book, and that is definitely a good resource as well. On this topic, someone asked, which tools did you use to make your wiki? It looks great. Thank you. It's actually very simple. I've been using Obsidian for note-taking for a long time, and I've been, well, not long enough, actually. I really regret that I didn't get into the whole note-taking or personal knowledge management earlier. I wish I got into it when I still studied computer science. That would probably have helped me a lot. And by now I'm afraid I've forgotten more than I learned in my career. So yeah, I've been using Obsidian, and lately I thought, how about I simply create a wiki that would add more value to the Monospace Mentor website. And so I simply created a new Obsidian vault, moved all the notes that are related to IT to that vault, and then I used Obsidian's Publish, which is a paid add-on to the Obsidian note application, which then lets you publish your notes as a website. And then I simply added a redirect that points from wiki.monospacementor.com to the Obsidian Publish domain, and that's it. Everything else is done by Obsidian Publish itself, which is great because you have that lovely knowledge graph, how your notes are related to each other and things like that. That was a very easy way to get my notes online, to your benefit, I hope. Now let's tackle this wall of text here. A couple of days ago, I was contacted via email about an internship opportunity at a company, which initially seemed very interesting. However, after being informed that I needed to fill out a data form, I proceeded. Upon reviewing it, I felt uneasy as it asked for details such as my medical history, marital status, children, blood type, weight, height, full names of parents and both parents' identification numbers, all before scheduling a first interview. Let's continue. My question is, what information do you recommend one should be willing to share when applying to companies, and what do you believe is most appropriate to ensure it aligns with one's privacy? It's worth noting that in this instance, sharing the mentioned information did not guarantee my position at the company. I'm pretty sure chat answered that question before I was even able to. And as Chugging Coffee says, no red flags here. Definitely move forward. Not a scam at all. Oh my god. What the actual fuck? That is insane. What? That is a scam. That can't be right. I mean, even to get an employment contract, even to get employed as the CTO of a worldwide pharmaceutical corporation, you probably will not have to answer about your blood type or your parents' identification numbers. That is completely insane. So I think we can put this aside as a complete scam and as a way to gather information about you to then go ahead and proceed with stealing your identity and phishing you and your friends and all these things. Let's get back to the second part on your actual question. What information do you recommend one should be willing to share when applying to companies? Let's simply apply common sense here.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Synergiax, welcome to the stack. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Yeah, let's apply common sense. I mean, of course, a company wants to know a few things about you and also needs to know a few things about you. That's perfectly legit. But I think it should be pretty obvious if an information is required for a company, either for process reasons or legal reasons. So they need your name. They might need your address to simply be able to send you documents or things like that. They might also, at least at a later date, need things like your birth date and things like that. But blood type or marital status, how is that in any way relevant to applying somewhere? Except, yes, if you are applying with a very secretive organization, if you want to get a job at the Pentagon or at the CIA or something like that, there might be additional hurdles to take. But in a more common environment, the amount of information that you need to submit should be pretty short. Not Safe for Wi-Fi, who apparently wrote this question, said, in this case, it wasn't a scam. They did have verifiable information, but I found their handling of information horrible. The worst part is that it was a serious company with agreements with my educational institution. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think there are organizations that are so inept at handling stuff that they actually reach scam levels of incompetence and of things, because there's always, if you think beyond, does this company need this information, of which the answer is no, they don't. There's also, is this company able to protect this information? I mean, this is highly personally identifiable information, and you always need to be concerned about people leaking your information too. I mean, there's not a week where we don't get news of another company being held hostage with malware or getting hacked and leaking information of thousands, if not millions, of customers or contacts. So that's also a concern that we need to take into account. So even if an organization might have a legit interest in specific details, I would also ask myself, what if that got leaked? And so I would definitely consider this a big, bright red flag. And if it's about an internship, no way, Jose. what you wrote. I'm not sure if I picked this up in the corner of my eye or if we actually thought completely alike. Laman says, very serious company, I'll take your sensitive data and put them in an Excel file with thousands of other people. Yeah. Chicken Coffee says, it may be a real company, but half of that is even illegal to ask for. Yep, in multiple countries. A company for work never needs your medical info, blood type, etc., unless it's extremely specific work circumstances. Yeah, that's crazy. And yes, at least some of these details, it's actually illegal to ask for them. In many countries, there is legislation that, for example, you can't just ask about marital status or ask about are you going to have children or things like that. Wow, that was quite the whopper here. So yeah, again, apply common sense and maybe get back to them and ask them, why do you need me to provide these specific details? And see if they can come up with a good reason other than, well, it's part of our HR process. Wow. That is a rabbit hole question. Remote work or on-site? My personal preference is remote. When I started my current company 14 years ago, I knew that we'd be working with servers in some distant data center anyway. And I came out of a corporate employment as an IT manager where I thought, well, it was nice to be together with people, but there were definitely also downsides. So I decided to make my company a remote-only company and save the money for other things that I would have spent for getting office space and things like that. Also, of course, remote work allows hiring people from wherever. And that's a lot more freedom. Of course, when we talk about freedom, being able to work remotely also offers you a great deal of freedom, at least if your company does it right. That being said, I mentioned that I decided to spend the money otherwise, and part of that money, from my perspective, needs to go into mitigating the downsides of remote work, which is, for example, personal contact, being able to pick up on all the body language of someone, getting to know someone a little bit more closely than is possible via Zoom. And so, for example, part of the office rent that you might save is should go into get-togethers, into company retreats and things like that, where people can actually get together and meet in person, get to know each other in different situations. For example, in my company, we have what we call Freistyle Days. Freistyle IT is the name of our company. Freistyle Days is that the whole team gets together at a city in Europe at least once a year, and we spend some time together there, having discussions or doing games with each other, going out for lunch and dinner to restaurants and stuff, or maybe take a trip to a museum or something like that, where people can socialize, can get to know each other in different situations than just discussing a specific engineering problem. And if your work situation allows for both of these things, I would say, and that's my personal opinion, that's ideal. The whole freedom about about remote work, being able to control your own schedule, being able to go and quickly fetch your kid from school when they're not well, being able to go to a massage appointment, which I'm going to have after this stream. Something like that is definitely a perk. And if your company then provides the things that grease the social wheels as well, and allows your team to become even more coherent, even to interact even better by having these company retreats or team retreats and things like that, that would definitely be the ideal from my point of view. The Laman asked, is there a link to the company website? Did you mean the website of my own company? Ah, my own company. Okay. So the company itself, the company website is very small, but it does have our run book that gives you a little bit of insight into how we work. And it also has a link to our main product where at the moment we are in the relaunch of the product website, which is frysteelbox.com, which is our managed hosting platform. And at the moment we are working with a marketing agency to give that a complete rebuild from scratch. The Llama says no massage, and I disagree. By the way, that's also a way how a company can spend the money they save from not having to have office space, put it into things that improve the quality of life for your employees. Allow them to have physical therapy, massages, sponsor a night out with their significant other once a year, something like that. Really helps with morale and with employee retention. Now we're getting back to a more technical question. I love the philosophy of Linux, using Linux, reading about Linux, and researching Linux passionately. You and me both. What skills do you think are essential for me to earn a living and be a functional and competent person to make a living with Linux? That's a very good question, and definitely something that I've thought about a lot. I've been using Linux since 1993, and am now back to running Linux on all my desktop machines as well, not only on hundreds of Linux servers for my company. So I definitely am making a living with Linux, and I'm having fun with it. Skills that are essential. I think I even wrote a blog post about that, so I should have a button for that, actually, which I don't. Huh. So I'll have to type it out. So here's my website. If you go to the info or blog and more link at the top, it'll take you to my blog. And I think there are a few articles in there that at least touch this question, but still I'm promising answers. So let me answer that as well. One of the most essential skills is not technical, actually.
It's a Unix system.
Troika, thanks for the follow. Oh, okay, I see the lemon. Thanks for clarifying that. Let me see. The skill that I was referring to is curiosity. Because I think in our space, regardless if it's about Linux or software engineering, things are moving so fast that it's hard to keep up. And it's also, that being said, not necessary to always keep up. Keep that in mind. You don't have to chase after the new hype every time. I think that's actually detrimental. But also, you shouldn't stagnate. So in order to grow, you need curiosity. You need to keep being interested in stuff and picking a few things that tickle your fancy and get deeper into them and learn about them. Apply them in practice, see if they work for you or not. That's definitely something that I think is essential. That's possibly my personal bias, because I'm a lifelong learner. I need to be growing. I need to see myself growing. Otherwise, I'll end up doing a bad job. And that's what cost me at least one job in the past, where I got so bored that I didn't really deliver a great job anymore. And in the end, they chose to not renew my contract. Maybe there were other reasons as well. I'll never know. But I think I would have fired myself eventually, because I just stagnated and languished. So curiosity is definitely a skill that I would recommend to foster. Other skills are simply being able then to learn. So you need to find your personal way, how you best learn, how you best ingest knowledge. Is it by reading, or are you more of a visual person? Especially if you're not Gen X like me, younger people seem to prefer learning from, say, YouTube videos and things like that. Other people say, I'd much rather prefer text, because I can then read and reread that on my own. So that's definitely personal preference, and you need to find out for yourself what works. And other than that, I'd say the most essential thing is practice. Don't just get a shelf full of books and think that because you read a book now you know something. That's definitely not the case. And there's scientific proof for that. So being able to apply stuff that you have read or seen in practice is definitely the other more important skill. So grab a project, maybe invent a pet project, get your own website running on a VPS, things like that. That is something that I highly recommend, because the purely academic way of learning stuff and then repeating that in a way on a theoretical level doesn't really fly. Not safe for Wi-Fi asked, and what about technical skills? I feel like I'm missing the mark here. Is your question more about the lemon taking care of me, as always? Thank you very much. I keep talking and talking without hydrating. Are you asking about specific topics or areas around Linux that I would recommend getting into? Because even Linux itself as an operating system is a very vast area. And I think you can't know everything about Linux. But you can, of course, know a lot about specific areas. But that is something that is also very personal. I mean, you could go and learn about how different parts of the Linux kernel work. How is memory allocated? How do file systems keep their performance without having to be defragmented as file systems had to be back in the 80s and 90s? How does a process scheduler decide where to spend CPU time? Things like that might be interesting, but if you're more going into the direction...
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Decipher, welcome to the stack. If you're more going into the direction of, well, I'd like to do practical stuff on Linux, like software development or something like that, having intricate knowledge about the Linux kernel itself might not really help you because it just goes too deep. I'm struggling with giving you a helpful answer here, and that's more on me at the moment. I think I might just be on the wrong track here. Give me a second to think about this. Let's park this question. I'll keep it on screen. Let's keep this. I'd like to keep this in my head, fermenting for a bit, and we'll get back to that. I just realized we are at the 3 o'clock mark. And I'll have to finish in time or shortly today because, yes, I have a physical therapy appointment. Hey, Moo, how you doing? Happy Friday. Happy FFF Friday to you. So... let me see. Yeah, my setup is not optimal here. All right, so a follow-up question to something we touched earlier is, things are moving so fast, but will we reach a plateau or is this going to be a trend? I don't see this ending, to be honest. From my perspective, there has been lots of development on the hardware side for a long time, but Moore's law stopped applying. So on the hardware side, we seem to be plateauing a bit. And yeah, we can see that in our daily lives because the phone that you have at the moment is probably more than enough that, to meet your demands. And getting a more speedy machine or something like that, which was always a thing back in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, where, yes, of course, a 2 gigahertz machine is, of course, faster than a 1.5 gigahertz machine. That doesn't apply as much anymore. There is development, of course, on the side of specific hardware, say GPUs, NPUs, APUs, things like that. But also, it's not that exciting anymore. And I don't see how the, say, Apple's M4 chip might be more exciting than the previous M3 one. These are just incremental improvements and very gradual improvements that might not even have much relevance to our daily lives anymore. So software is a completely different thing, and I think the more people who contribute to our global pool of software applications and things like that, the more interesting developments and innovations we're going to have, and we need those. So I actually hope that this is going to stay a trend, that things are moving fast. I think we just need to again adapt our abilities to also pick and choose between stuff, because you don't have to go after every new web front-end framework that appears on the market. You don't have to go for every new to-do application that gets released as open source. Things like that. It's great to have a lot of choice, but we need to be able to manage that choice. And I think as long as we develop that skill and nurture that skill, I don't mind having a lot of choice. Non-code says quality over quantity. That's definitely a good mantra to have, yes. And Moose says, enjoyed the Friday so far and just wanted to wish you and everybody a happy weekend. Thank you so much, mate. Have a great weekend. Not Safe for Wi-Fi says, thank you for all the advice, content and information. I find it truly inspiring and motivating. It's inspiring to meet passionate people about Linux and motivating to know that what I can learn from people like you and share the knowledge I acquire. Thank you so much for you made my day. Finding this stream was a lovely coincidence. Have a great day. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. You're making my day as well. And I hope to be able to welcome you to the stream soon again. Okay, that's that question, but questions keep coming in. Okay, so I guess we are now getting more into the previous question. Some companies have Linux, for example, nice to have Linux, Docker, Kubernetes, CI/CD. Is there any insight on what they mean when it comes to Linux? What does the developer need to do? Thank you so much by giving me these keywords, because that removed a bit of the blockage that I was afraid that I had thinking about an answer. Yes, of course. Linux technologies. Yeah, of course. I was completely blocked. Sorry about that. So yeah, of course, there are great developments in Linux. One thing I can't stop raving about is, for example, the new atomic Linux distributions that take a different approach to how you set up your Linux machine and how you maintain the packages, how you do software updates and things like that. That's something to look at. And then, of course, we have the whole containerized ecosystem, the whole cloud-native ecosystem, starting with Docker and other technologies related to OCI containers, as they are called in general, Docker, Podman, things like that. And that's definitely a technology that is bound to stay because it has proven its value. And of course, there are then technologies that build on this foundation, like Kubernetes, for example, because Kubernetes simply takes the container deployment approach and makes it scalable and makes it manageable even in bigger infrastructures. And so those definitely are technologies that you should look into. You should know what they are all about. You don't need to go too deep if you don't find value in them, but I think Linux makes it so easy to try out, say, running a specific application, especially if it's an internet application in Docker containers. For example, try and spin up a WordPress blog with a container running the WordPress application and another container running the related and necessary required database, and go on from there. pick another project that you're interested in and see if you can get it going using container technology. You don't have to go into Kubernetes right away because that's a very complex infrastructure tool. But once you feel familiar with containers, of course, go ahead and try something like K3s, for example, which is an easy way to get a Kubernetes cluster running on a small infrastructure, or something like Minikube, for example, that allows you to run Kubernetes on your own workstation without having to maintain servers. Things like that, and try to get something running in Kubernetes. And then there are, of course, the whole DevOps tools like CI and CD that are mentioned here. If you are used to, say, building software on your own machine, try and set up a CI process using GitHub Actions or GitLab CI, where these processes are kicked off when you push an update to your Git repository, and see if the build is successful then, if you are more on the software engineering side, as non-codes, for example, is add more features to your continuous integration process. For example, add something like linting that tells you about your coding style and things like that. Add test steps that execute your unit tests and things like that. But that's more on the software engineering side. But that's what DevOps is all about: having automated infrastructure that makes a development life easier. What other technologies are there? Maybe I'll get to some later. Going back to the original question here, what I would say in general would be try and become what I usually call a T-shaped engineer, and the T relates to your skill set. You should have a broad spectrum of skills that might actually be very shallow, and that's the bar of the T, and then pick one or two topics where you have deep knowledge, and that's then the stem of the T. So you don't have to be a jack of all trades. Probably you can't anyway, but try to get as much system administration knowledge as possible. So go and run a web server. Maybe try and get a mail server going, even if you're not going to use it seriously, and will still rely on a professional email provider, but at least try and get one running and see if it can actually send and or receive email, if you can get it working right. Things like that. Try out how Linux is applied in practice on the internet, because Linux is the basis of the internet by now, and try and get that knowledge. And just as a shameless plug, as someone who's going to provide courses and workshops about this, I'm definitely going to help you with that. For example, you can always join the server room, my membership community, where we talk about these things, where we also help each other getting more into these things, answer questions and do these things. And the membership fee isn't really anything terrible. It's basically starting at the same level as a simple Twitch subscription. So I'm convinced that you get your money's worth. Nancodes has another question in chat here. Do you know what GitHub secrets are and what it is used for? As far as I know, it's about how to store stuff that you need in your continuous integration, in your CI pipeline, but can't make part of your Git repository itself. Passwords, API keys, things like that. You can't just write them into your CI YAML file, because if that gets exposed, you have a serious security issue. And that's why these platforms allow you to maintain and manage these secrets separately from your Git repository. Usually you simply enter them on their website, on GitHub or GitLab itself. And the way the secrets then get integrated with your CI processes is using environment variables. These environment variables get set before the CI job is started, and your CI job can then simply read the contents and values of these environment variables, and that way get access to, say, an API key that your CI run needs to trigger something or to query something from a third-party website. That way, even if you accidentally expose your Git repository, or if someone hacks GitHub and gets access to your Git repository, the secrets will be maintained somewhere else, and the blast radius of a security issue is limited and doesn't include your most vulnerable information. Very helpful, the Laman, very helpful. Not Safe for Wi-Fi says, new goal before the end of the year, learn these sysadmin trades. Noted. Exactly. The Laman says, well, Linux is the basis of the internet. Where does Unix fit in? Unix is simply Linux's granddad. And everything that I said about Linux basically applies to Unix as well. But Unix as an operating system, and especially as a commercial operating system, ceased really working quite a while ago, because Linux more or less ate its lunch. And so we're not talking a lot about Unix anymore, even though Unix is still in operation. So, for example, just take the new hardware that Oxide Computers is developing. They are building basically the cloud in a rack that you can buy, with compute nodes, with storage nodes, and everything that you need to run cloud native infrastructure, but as a data center rack. And it's highly optimized for its purpose, and it runs Solaris, which is one of the remaining commercial Unix versions. So Unix isn't dead yet, it's just doing its job in the background. Similar to other mainframe operating systems like ZOS that are still around and doing their jobs in data centers, in banks, and everywhere else. So yeah. Oh, thanks for the reminder, the Laman. I did actually see Troika's question, but it scrolled off. Thanks for making me aware of it. So Troika asked, I have a question. I'm sorry if it is out of context. I'm a data scientist graduate, and as all for undergraduates, I'm really struggling to find a job. I would like to know if you have any tips for that, and how can I manage to learn new things, and what things to focus on when my surviving job is actually taking all my time. Serious question. Let me grab a sip of coffee before I try and answer that. That's a hard question to answer, because of course we are touching the topic of known or unknown biases, up to inherent and systemic racism, that also, of course, apply to hiring processes. And the job market is tough as it is at the moment, even if you're not a foreigner in the country where you're working. So being a foreigner has you at an additional disadvantage. One piece of advice that I can think of is try and nurture and use your personal network. Because it's hard to tell what your chances are at getting an interview and getting hired at a company, regardless if it's a small or a big company. There are great big companies and there are terrible small companies and vice versa. So it's hard to tell from the outside how your chances at getting a job are even more diminished with the disadvantage I mentioned. But having a network of people who can actually point you to companies that are known to be biased for or against foreigners, for example, is definitely something that would be helpful. So, that's definitely something that might be helpful. Having people who can tell you, don't even apply there, or definitely apply there. But otherwise, I'm showing my privilege by saying that I haven't thought about this question much before. So the only other thing that I can come up with is, unfortunately, that your situation is similar to other minorities that sadly have to do additional work to succeed as much compared to the privileged majority, which usually is white men. Women still often have to do additional work, surpassing their male competition simply to succeed at getting the same kind of jobs, to get the same kind of salary. And I'm pretty sure the same applies to other minorities as well. And that's really unfortunate, and we all have to work to change that. So I'd actually address this at everyone watching this right now. Use the influence that you have in your personal sphere, at your workplace, to make sure that these things change. That a highly qualified foreigner has the same possibilities as a highly qualified native. The Lalman, I trust you completely. Feel free to ask. Or to share. Yeah, feel free. And then we'll wrap things up, because I definitely need to get that massage. I can't miss that appointment. You're very welcome, Troika, even though I don't think I really was too helpful it was more of a depressing note, but it is what it is. Imagining the Laman writing frantically, trying to get their point across in a proper way, because that's how I feel when I try to contribute something serious in text, especially at the moment where I'm forcing myself to learn the Colmac keyboard layout, which still is a complete trip, working against decades of muscle memory. I'll have to reread what Troika wrote to get the context of your answer. I mean, data science great. I'm really struggling to find a job. How can I manage to learn new things and what things to focus on when my surviving job is actually taking all my time? Okay, I missed a nuance there as well, because part of your question was also, how can I skill up? How can I develop the necessary skills to get a new job when the job that I need to pay the rent is already taking up my whole day? That's also a tough thing. Of course, learning at the job is a possibility, but that depends on your reality and how things are. I guess if time is scarce, then it's important to prioritize. That's something that I had to learn recently as well, because on top of my hosting company, I decided to run monospacementor.com on top, and that meant additional strain on my time that I was already splitting between my day job and my family and my own personal life. And so prioritizing has become my key task. Every morning I need to prioritize what I need to get done that day and what else will unfortunately fall off the wagon. And I think the same applies to your situation as well. You need to prioritize, you need to know what you're going to go after, and focus on the things that are necessary for that. Whatever that is, I can't know what that is, but that's definitely a meta skill that you in particular need to have, being able to prioritize, being able to focus on the stuff that moves your needle the most. And so in that context, the Lama says, the job will sip away all your potential. Gather money and study to become a competitive data engineer. Learn some machine learning tools like PyTorch. Be good at Python and R. Get core skills in the data science area. Definitely good advice there. Do some projects on Kaggle, add them to your GitHub so you can present a portfolio when you apply to something. People will say you can do both. They have no idea. I'll probably take that L. You're right. It's hard to split your attention between two things, but focusing on your own growth will mean what you mentioned earlier, namely before you quit the job that saps all your energy and takes away a lot of time that you could rather spend for your own growth. You need to be able to live, and that's a tough ask, to be honest. I know because I still remember times when I was deeply in debt because of mistakes I made myself. And it took me years and years and years of work to get out of that debt and reach a financial status that I by now can claim is stable. So being in precarious situations is not fun. And so it's hard to say, focus on your growth and ditch that job if as Troika said, is basically necessary to survive. The line continues, this is a suggestions and you know your own circumstances and you need to pay the bill. But if you don't invest in your personal growth and future, you will do only that, pay bills and work at a job you don't enjoy. Valid. Yep. You're not wrong. And see, that's why I love having a community. Even though I have a bit of experience and a few ideas that I can share, having a community that weighs in and adds so much more value to what I do here. It wouldn't be half the fun and it wouldn't be half as useful if you folks weren't there. And I enjoy this a lot. This is also part of why we have the server room with things like our hot seat sessions, where we have a member of our community present a challenge that they have at the moment, something they struggle with, or something they would like to get some feedback on. And of course I try to give that and give advice on this situation. But then we have other community members on the same call, and they weigh in with their perspective. They might have much more practical experience than I have on that particular topic. And in the end, that member who put up the courage to get in the limelight, go away with something they hopefully find useful. So if you'd like to join that community, check out the serverroom.com.sh, and maybe it's something that will help your personal growth as well. Nancode says, I've been unemployed for 4 years, living like a hermit, but have not been happier using my time to learn. That's definitely also something. Of course, it's highly satisfying to make progress, to see yourself grow, things like that. And I mean, see yourself grow. Speaking of that, you can actually see Nancodes grow on her own channel. So go ahead and follow her and pop into her stream when she's online. So yeah, that was my 1.5 office hours. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for trust. This was really great. Sebis Naga asks, hello, do you have your dot files anyway? Yes, I do. Simply enter the !dot files command and you get the URL. All my dot files are on GitLab, and you can see how I built these things using Chemois as my dot files manager. And yeah, that's been my office hour. I'll be back next week. I hope you're going to have a great weekend. What do you think? Shall we raid someone? Let me take a look if I can find someone who we can raid. Oh, that's Aaron D. Francis, who's new to me, but his stream seems to be about launching high-performance SQLite. That is definitely something that piques my interest, so I hope it's helpful for you too. However, why is his stream offline? That doesn't look good. Unfortunate. Let's try again.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Coding with Carlos. Welcome. Thanks for the follow. Okay, this is taking too long. I can't pick someone. And if I can't pick someone, Lady Lara, hello, joining us at the end of my stream, unfortunately. I hope you're having a great day. And yeah, folks, thank you so much. This has been great and fun, and I hope it was fun for you too. I'll be back next week. Until then, have a great weekend and take care.